Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
A close friend is so close to his wife that they've developed something more? Today's first installment of a story with a similar plot. Enjoy it! It was supposed to be a surprise for her, and in a way, it was. Although it ended up being a surprise to me in general. I can say with confidence that none of us are planning to celebrate her 30th birthday. You never expect this to happen to you. You don't expect your whole world to fall away from under your feet, leaving you with this damned aching emptiness where your heart should be. It always involves some old guy who's ex-military or ex-cop or lawyer or accountant or guy who spends a lot of time outside the home. This never happens to some nerdy IT guy who has neither authority nor influential friends who can help him out. You'll never hear of this happening to a guy who just commutes to work, doesn't spend any more time in the office than necessary, and plays D&D on the weekends. You've never heard of this happening to a guy like me, but it happens, and it happened. And as I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and looked at her and her lover, my universe collapsed. I left work early that day, taking a few hours off to go home and surprise her that morning before heading to work. I wished her a happy birthday with kisses and breakfast in bed. Gwen, my wife of 6 years, looked depressed, but I chalked it up to sleepiness. Well, who doesn't like breakfast in bed, right? We exchanged I love yous, and I walked out smiling to myself because she didn't know I'd be home early and ordered lunch at the high-end beast she loves but we can rarely afford. She said that on the occasion of her birthday she took a few days off from work. I asked before setting my cunning plan into motion. I quietly extracted every bit of information I could from her. Is she going somewhere? No, Gwen said she just wanted to relax, maybe watch Netflix. Would she like to go somewhere later to meet our friends? Of course, she was happy about this. It was a chance to go out on the town, and she's always up for a drink and a dance. Relax, Netflix, and relaxation. Damn, I'm an idiot for not catching that. Maybe she just blurted out too much, but I was so damn trusting that I didn't think about it. I mentioned in passing that there might be a surprise for her later, something to celebrate her birthday. But I did my best to make sure Gwen didn't realize that I'd be home early, that I'd take her to her favorite restaurant, and that I had in my pocket the necklace she'd been drooling over for the last 4 months. If she had known about all this, especially that I would be returning home early after lunch, perhaps I would not have been even more surprised in the end. After all, how could I expect this standing in the doorway of our bedroom and watching the sunlight from the window fall on her heart-shaped face and bare chest? I asked myself this, how could I have expected this? Could I not? There was simply no way, no sign that anything was wrong. However, the same rays of afternoon light that illuminated the features of the woman I loved so dearly were also on the body without clothes of her lover. She usually sleeps without anything, much to my delight. She is small and fragile, she's not a supermodel with big chest and a huge fifth place. She is small, pale, and dark at the same time, and for me, she is ideal. Mind you, it was her eyes that always bothered me the most. Gwen's eyes are large, dark, expressive. I could get lost in them for days. But Joe, no. I've never seen him without clothes before, and my God, I hope never to see him again. He is shorter than me, 1.75 meters against my 1.83 meters, although we are of approximately the same build. Not fat, not muscular, not a freak, not a stud. Joe Eisenberger was an old friend of mine, even the best man at our wedding. Like me, he was an ordinary guy in bed with my wife in the room. Gwen and Joe were both asleep and disheveled. The sheets on the bed were turned inside out, her long black hair disheveled, his short brown locks sticking out in tangled thorns where her long fingers had become entangled in them. They huddled together as if they were cold despite the warm July afternoon, and I stood silently and looked at them while they slept. I stood there, trying to comprehend that my wife, the woman I love, the one who had sworn to leave all others for me, had cheated on me with a guy I would never have suspected was stabbing me in the back. I felt bad. No matter how many times I closed my eyes and took deep breaths to banish the sight of them, I always opened them again to see the same nightmare in front of me. I was numb. In an instant, I stopped feeling anything. My movements were robotic as I took my phone out of my pocket and snapped a few pictures of them together. Then, I softly closed the bedroom door and trudged away. Beer, I needed beer and smoke. I hadn't smoked for many years, but now I needed it. Gwen still occasionally smoked clove-flavored cigarettes, part of her goth past that she had never left behind. I pulled a pack out of her purse, took a beer from the refrigerator, and plopped down in a chair. The stout was cold, and the clove smoke was sweet and pungent in my mouth as I rolled it around my tongue in between sips and puffs. I stared at the evidence of betrayal on my phone. The lies exposed by digital magic. The images on the screen of a handheld device rather than right in front of me didn't help soften the shock. The numbness began to turn into pain that radiated from my stomach. What should I do? This is one question. Why she did it is different. For a long time, this was also in my head. And why Joe? Were there others? Oh God, I didn't mean to go any deeper. Every question made me feel worse. As I sat and thought, the emptiness in my chest grew larger. Both were fast asleep, neither of them moved when I returned to the empty house, and they continued to sleep, not noticing that I was standing in the doorway. As far as I knew, they remained asleep all this time while I sat in the chair, and wave after wave of depression rolled over me. It was a tide that pulled me deeper and deeper into the ocean of black despair. I must have sat there for about 20 minutes, sipping a cigarette and a beer before some dark, devilish part of me awoke. With a flick of my thumb, I closed the photo app and opened the SMS app. Another puff of the clove cigarette, one more second to establish in my mind what I was going to do, and then do it. My thumb quickly tapped the tiny screen before pressing the send button on Gwen's phone. Hello honey, left work early. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Shall we go out or should we stay at home? I waited. 10 seconds. 30. In the bedroom, I heard Gwen's phone chirping loudly. She was always afraid of missing an SMS in case there was something important, so the volume of the signal was always at maximum. I was soon rewarded with the muffled sounds of two people running wildly around the bedroom. I heard the bedroom door open and caught a glimpse of Joe's bare fifth place as he hurried down the hall to the bathroom. He didn't see me sitting in the living room, and that was good. More time to turn the knife. My phone vibrated. Gwen replied to the message. Gwen, hooray! Will you stop by and buy some wine? I looked toward the kitchen, where the bottle of Merlot I had just purchased sat in plain sight on the table. I wanted to burst out laughing. She is trying to buy time to get her lover out of there and get herself in order. Will Merlot work? Great, see you soon. I love you, Gwen. She didn't answer. She didn't say back that she loved me. This added salt to the wound, which was already stinging and expanding with every second. More throwing was heard in the bedroom. I put my phone down for a second to grab a beer again. The coolness of the beer helped calm my racing heart, although it did nothing to relieve the knots in my stomach. I was lighting a second cigarette when I heard the toilet flush and the bathroom door open again. Joe was returning. I timed it, waited until he was almost past the doorway connecting the living room to the hall, waited until he reached the bedroom before calling out quietly, Hi Joe, how are you? I sounded surprisingly calm, I thought, but the look on his face when he stepped back to look into the living room was amazing. It was an expression of such stunned shock that I wanted to cherish this moment forever. So I picked up my phone and took another photo, which showed Joe and all his 37-year-old without anything glory with the stupidest look on his face. Jack, he began. What I raised my finger to my lips and shook my head. I didn't want to release the game yet. Was I cruel? Maybe. But I didn't care. Another quick flick of the thumb brought up the SMS app. I sent 2 short, separate messages to Gwen's phone. Gwen, honey, then he sent a second message, attaching a photo of her and Joe sleeping together. I'm home. Turning to Joe, I raised an eyebrow questioningly. So? I asked simply, as if nothing had happened. How long ago? He didn't answer right away, still trying to comprehend that he had been caught. A few moments before, Gwen appeared, the bedroom door slamming open, and she rushed out of the room and across the hallway to stand next to Joe. Her phone was clenched tightly in one hand. At least she had time to pull on the white panties and short emerald green silk robe I gave her 2 Christmases ago. Her legs were almost completely visible in it, and it was open, beautiful. But the face, this beautiful face, this young, innocent, sweet face, was filled with fear and panic. Lips trembled, the eyes I loved to look into were wider and rounder than I had ever seen them, and my insides clenched. Damn it, it was me who was betrayed. Why does my heart break when I see her so devastated? There was a painful silence between us for a few seconds, after which I gestured with my cigarette towards the kitchen. Wine is on the table, I said sadly. So sorry I didn't have time to cool it down, Jack. I waved it off. You're having a night with Joe in her bed behind my back, and this goes on for quite a long time. Is that what you're going to say? The last half of the cigarette was crushed against the ashtray with more force than necessary. Give me one reason, Gwen, why I shouldn't send these photos to everyone we know, including your family and mine, because I love you. Damn, 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 damn. My wife knows me too well. She knows exactly what to say and how to say it, and this adds fire to the rage born inside me of humiliation. But damn it, I wasn't going to give in so easily. Do you love me? Love you so much that you cheat with this. I trailed off. And that's all? Well, it's nice to know that you love me, Gwen. It's scary to think what you would do if you didn't love. The words in my mouth tasted bitter. Gwen said nothing, just pulled on her robe and looked at her toes. I looked at her lover. Dealing with him right here and now was impossible, not when he was standing here without anything. Joe, hide yourself, get out of here. He, of course, tried to portray a hero. He glanced uncertainly at Gwen and began muttering. Jack, I know this looks bad, and you two have a lot to talk about, but I'm not sure I can leave. And then I exploded. I don't remember how I jumped out of my chair. 1 minute I'm sitting on it, and suddenly I'm inches away from Joe, screaming in his face to get out of here. I can't even remember what exactly I said. Drool was flying, my whole body was trembling, my skin felt like it was on fire, and I could feel the tension in my fingers clenching at my sides. The urge to vomit was barely contained. I am not a cruel person. There have been 3 fights in my life, 2 in elementary school and 1 in high school, and I've never been much of a fighter. Only the last battle of these 3 could be considered a victory. I'd like to think that I'm a fairly even-tempered person, as I rarely raise my voice in anger, and with the exception of those 3 fights in my youth, I've never tried to hurt anyone. But at that moment, you would not have guessed it. I was ready to kill him. Just let this idiot say at least one word. That's all, one word, or even a hint that he was trying to do something, and I would tear him apart. Perhaps that's why Joe and Gwen looked even more scared. Neither of them had ever seen me like this. Nobody. Whatever I said worked. The idiot immediately retreated and rushed to the bedroom. Gwen's face was white with fear. She also took a few steps back, ensuring a distance of at least 3 meters between us. That was painful too. During our entire life together, I never raised my voice to her, never raised my fist in anger, never hit her. When we quarreled, which happened infrequently, I did it through clenched teeth and with great patience. I knew how her family treated her. Was I really that much like her father? Was I really that scary that she thought I would hit her? She tried to talk to me again while I stood there, blowing off steam. Jack, forgive me. This shouldn't have happened. It was just a night. I don't love him more than you. We had an understanding, that's all. The momentary outburst of rage subsided. Without the adrenaline to keep it going, my body quickly began to tremble, and my hands began to shake as I stared blankly at the hallway wall. I heard Joe packing his things in the other room. And when were you going to tell me about this understanding, Gwen? When exactly were you going to tell me you were cheating on me? I hated how hoarse my voice sounded. I didn't mean to cry. I sure as hell wasn't going to cry in front of her, and I sure as hell wasn't going to show her any compassion, not when I felt like there was still a knife twisting in my guts. The anguish must have been visible on my face. My wife stepped towards me, holding out her hand in an attempt to comfort me. The look of pity on her face made me want to vomit. This added to the humiliation I felt. The hand was knocked off. No, don't touch me. Not now, Gwen. No, don't touch me. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stepped back again. I felt the corners of my own eyes water, and my breath catch in my throat as I tried not to break down. I won't give her that kind of pleasure. I won't be weak. I have already been deceived by one of the two people in this world whom I trusted completely, and I'm not going to fall for any more tricks or lies. Nothing Gwen said or did could be trusted from now on. Jack, please listen to me, she begged in her sweet voice. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. Joe appeared, half-dressed and worried as hell. He carefully slipped past the two of us into the living room, giving me a wide berth as he did so. He glanced at Gwen and swallowed nervously. Gwen, I'll call you later, catching my hateful gaze, he said. Do yourself a favor and listen to her, okay, Jack? Gwen really loves you. Don't do anything stupid like sleeping with my friend's wife, Joe, for example, having an intim with her for quite a long time behind a friend's back, treating him like an idiot, laughing at him because he doesn't understand anything yet, and is too stupid to put two and two together. This kind of stupidity joke. I shook my head. Get out, there's the door. Go find her other side. He left without saying another word. I was left alone with my cheating wife for a long time. We both stood there, saying nothing to each other. God knows what she was thinking. She looked unhappy and scared, but how could I trust that if she lied to me about our marriage? How can I trust anything she says or does? My thoughts seemed stuck in my head, unable to find a way out, while questions and fears swirled around me but could not get out. Joe wanted me to listen to her, Gwen said. I didn't love him any more than she loved me. Did that mean she still loved him? I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Unexpectedly, she continued, this is my body. I stared at her in shock, but she straightened her shoulders and looked at me with her deep brown eyes. This is my body, she repeated a little louder. And I can do whatever I want with it. Just because we're married doesn't give you the right to approve or disapprove of what I do with him. This got me thinking. No, you're right. I have no rights to your body, Gwen. You are not my slave, you are a free person able to make your own decisions regarding your body. I gestured to her chest. You wanted to pierce your breasts. At first, I wasn't happy, but I didn't stop you. You even admitted that you liked it. You decided what if you got pregnant and what you wanted to do if that happened. And I agreed to all of this because it's your body, your health. But I'm your husband. This scream ripped from my throat, contradicting the calm, reasonable tone I had been using, and I felt like I was going to throw up. My voice was shaking as well as my hands. You made me a promise in front of my sister, in front of your mother, in front of our friends, in front of the pastor, and in front of everyone else. What were those words, Gwen? Love, honor, assistance, abandoning everyone else. Do you remember any of this? Were you serious in saying any of this? Yes, I mean it was, but it's not that simple, Jack. Not for me. I needed more. I couldn't give up on Joe. I thought I could, and I tried to be faithful. I really did. Please forgive me. You weren't supposed to find out about it like this. She might as well have punched me in the face. Communication involves not only words but also how those words are used, including timing. Something about the way she said she was trying to quit rang alarm bells in my ears. You've been having an intimate with him since we got married? Since I met you? She admitted quietly. Gwen turned away, unable to look me in the eyes, as the cat was let out of the bag. We've been married for 6 years and dated for just over 2, which means she and Joe have been together for almost 10 years. Joe and I have been dating for a long time. Jack, it's such a connection, it's hard to explain. We can't imagine life without each other. These soulful eyes looked at me with a plea for love in the depths, but I wanted to marry you, Jack. I wanted to see you as my husband. Please, you have to believe me. A thin case containing a necklace was pulled from my trouser pocket, and I threw it on the floor between us. As it landed, it opened to reveal the Victorian necklace I had bought her. In the light of the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, garnets and amethysts sparkled in silver filigree. Happy birthday, Gwen. Time blurred. I seem to remember her begging me not to leave. I remember her voice but not the exact words, and I don't remember her face at all. I don't remember how I left, just a vague sensation of movement. She is sobbing on the porch, and I'm sitting in the car, not looking at her, and then I leave. I consider myself lucky that I didn't have an accident. I came to my senses already on the highway, and at first, I didn't even understand which route I was taking and in which direction. Some part of me needed to leave, and so I drove without any purpose. When I finally got my bearings, I stopped the car at the next stop. This is one of those little rest stops on the highway. There's no gas station or store here, just a regular brick building with restrooms and vending machines. After getting out of the car, I managed to move to a grassy area where there were picnic benches. When I reached the tree line, I finally allowed myself to vomit noisily into all the bushes. The vomiting continued until I started throwing up my insides, leaving me drained both physically and emotionally. Falling backward, I leaned against the nearest tree trunk to catch my breath. My skin felt sticky, the bile burned my parched throat and stuck to my tongue. Rubbing my face, I wanted the world to disappear. "Hey, buddy." The voice was old and thick. I opened my eyes and saw a truck driver heading towards me. "Are you all right?" I nodded, letting my hands fall to my knees. Yes, probably." I took a deep breath. I lied enough lies for today. "No, probably not." He squatted down and looked into my eyes, overweight, bloated, wearing a tattered baseball cap. He is the stereotypical truck driver. "You don't smell like alcohol, the pupils aren't dilated as hell, so it doesn't look like you were on pills, and you are not like them. You look like crap though. Do you feel bad? Do you want me to call an ambulance?" Shaking my head again, I managed to smile. "No, something like that. Sick of love maybe, broken heart, you know how it goes." This complete stranger nodded solemnly. "Crap, I think so. And not bad." "Sorry to hear that, buddy." Glancing over his shoulder toward the highway for a moment, the truck driver chewed on his bottom lip for a second before returning his attention to me. "Listen, on the road, you swerved very much back and forth. I stopped behind you to give you hell, but I don't think I can make you feel any worse than you look. However, if I get behind the wheel again, I won't feel too comfortable. Do you have anyone you can call?" There were two people in this world whom I trusted without any doubt. Now there is only one left. Yes, my sister. I can call her. With numb fingers, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. The trucker stood up and moved a little to the side to give me privacy, leaning against the picnic table to keep an eye on me. Oddly enough, I was grateful to him. There were 2 rings before the phone was picked up, and I felt a wave of relief when I heard Annabelle's familiar greeting. "Hello, idiot. How are you? Thought you were going to hang out with Gwen today?" I smiled. "Hello, little Belle. Everything didn't go as I planned. Just the understatement of the year. Can't you come and pick me up? And I know you and Duncan have kids and everything, but can I crash at your place tonight? Just one night, I promise." Annabelle fell silent. Anyone who knows her knows that such silence is never a good sign. What's happened? Taking a deep breath, I wiped away my smile. Found Gwen and Joe in bed together an hour or so ago. There was another long, icy silence followed by, "That's a situation." Annabelle then went into business mode. "Okay, where are you?" I felt a little stupid asking the truck driver where exactly we were, but he didn't have anything bad to say about it. Having conveyed the information to my sister, I heard her nod over the phone. "Okay, I'll take the children to my brother-in-law's house. Tammy and I babysit each other's kids all the time. Give me 20 minutes, maybe 30, and I'll be there." Annabelle's voice became soft as she added, "I'm sorry, big brother." "Hey," I said with more humor than I felt. "It's not your fault, dumbass. See you soon. Love you." "I love you too, Jack." She must have been worried about me. My sister and I rarely called each other by name unless there was something serious going on. The call ended, and I looked up at the truck driver. He glanced sideways at me and squatted down again. "Sorry, I tried not to listen, but I heard enough. She cheated on you, right?" I couldn't trust my voice again, so I just nodded. Clicking his tongue, he spat to the side. Some time ago, my wife left me. She found some guy from college and dumped me. He raised an eyebrow. Do you have children? I shook my head. No, we got ready in the end, but it's not nice to say that it will make everything easier. I don't think my daughter has forgiven either of us. Reaching back, he pulled out a tattered leather wallet on a chain. A tattered business card was pulled from it and offered. I doubt you know what to do, buddy. I know this because I didn't know it at the time. But if push comes to shove, call this guy for me. He did everything right, taking the card. I looked at it. Thomas Lynn. Who is this? Divorce lawyer. Good, decent guy. We still go out for a beer together from time to time. Maybe you and your lady will work things out, maybe not. But it won't hurt to call him. He will be honest with you. Stretching out his hand, the truck driver introduced himself. Ted. Ted White. I shook the outstretched hand. The handshake was firm, not some kind of limp gesture or overbearing grip. I felt bad that my palm was sweating. I like this guy, Jack Brandt. It's time for me to get back on the road, Jack. Will you wait for your sister? Yes, driving now is not the best idea. I liked it. Ted stood up and pulled up his pants. Take care of yourself, Jack. And believe me, now everything seems bad, but it tends to get better. At least, that's what they say. Ted left, and I closed my eyes again. I leaned my back against the tree and tried to relax. Life no longer made sense. The person who should have had my biggest back in this world betrayed me, and a complete stranger cared about me enough to check on my well-being. The whole world has turned upside down. I retreated into myself for a while. The background noise of the highway died down, and I began to remember. You are alone. I looked up from my beer in surprise and saw a petite goth girl with elven eyes smiling at me. The fact that she paid attention to me out of all the guys in the bar was surprising, especially considering that I was dressed completely differently from them or her. Fresh out of college, my friends and I were obsessed with gaming. We played tabletop role-playing games, talked about science fiction and fantasy, traded comics, and participated in collectible card game tournaments. Some of us were fond of historical reconstructions. Our favorite hangouts were coffee shops and libraries. Musical tastes are all sorts of things, but there needs to be some meat too in the music, not poorly dubbed samples running through a repetitive chorus with a simple bass line. So how the hell did we end up in a club frequented by goths and emos? Someone suggested this as a change of pace. We joked that at the gaming table we were playing vampires, so hey, let's go and meet some of them. Everyone laughed at this, but we didn't mean to make fun of anyone, we just wanted to look at something different. Everyone dressed up in black leather and mesh. It was funny to see how some of the guys tried to put on makeup and not end up looking like a bunch of clowns. Fortunately, the internet has recently become something useful, and you can gorgeous black dress straight out of the 19th century came up and spoke to me was unclear. However, the sight of her made my heart beat faster. She gave off an intoxicating aroma, flowers and spices mixed with something more primal. And God, her eyes. My gaze could go anywhere on her body. I could stare at her breasts, look down to see if she was showing her legs, and try to figure out if she was wearing a corset. But I couldn't help but look into those large, dark eyes with lengthening eyelashes. You are alone, she repeated in a louder voice. When I didn't answer, the blaring techno music made it impossible to have a normal conversation. The smile never left her face. No. Did I stutter? I think I stuttered. Well, I'm here with friends. They're on the dance floor somewhere, I guess. But are you alone? She repeated. Oh, taken aback that she asked me that, I quickly shook my head. Do you mean no, I'm not here with anyone special? Her smile became wider and at the same time more modest, relief showed on her face. Okay, she replied, then boldly, as if nothing had happened, she sat down on the bar stool next to me. This was not easy for her, with her small bustle being part of the ensemble. For several minutes, we sat next to each other, just looking at each other and not saying anything. People were laughing and spinning around us, The music was chilling to the bone, and the bartender kept casting amused glances at the two of us. Finally, I overcame my nervousness and tried to break the ice. The crush started to take over, and I realized that if I didn't tell her something soon, I would probably lose any chance of ever seeing her again. The very thought that I would never see those eyes again hurt me. "Excuse me, I have to ask," I asked politely, "are you wearing a corset under all this and all those petticoats?" She rewarded me with a laugh. "If you behave well," she mimicked me, "then maybe you'll find out later." I blushed, not used to being flirted with. However, she noticed my distress and extended a black-gloved hand in greeting. "I'm Gwen." Annabelle's voice gently brought me back to the waking world, chasing away the sweet memories, and I opened my eyes to see her looking at me from under her blonde bangs. My sister smiled with relief. "You do understand that you can get robbed here, right, silly?" I grinned. "Will this make my day worse?" Against her will, she giggled. Then she hugged me tightly. "God, I'm sorry, Jack. I know how much you love her." Annabelle was nearby. My little sister came to my aid, as she always did before, and my arms wrapped around her to hold her close. Tears began to fall again, this time they were unstoppable. "Take me home, Annabelle." Our car ride to my sister's was silent, but I was looking forward to being home again. Wasn't it strange to call this place home? Annabelle lived there with her husband and twins. It was her house, not mine. But once, it was mine too. The old farmhouse had been our mother's for 4 or 5 generations. When Mom died 4 years ago, Annabelle and I inherited it. Since Gwen and I already had our own split-level ranch, it made more sense for my sister to have it. It was a spacious building with many additions added over the years. There was no shortage of bedrooms. When she and Duncan got married, I gave them my half of the house as a wedding gift. So this was their home now. But I grew up there. My mother and grandparents raised us in this house after my father left. And although I moved in a sense, it was my home. As we entered the house, familiar smells filled my nose, welcoming me. Now the smell of children was in the air. Little Jacqueline and Diana were only a year old, but it's normal. They are my nieces, and I love them. They are part of my family, part of my home. I called Duncan and told him what happened, my sister said as we entered the kitchen. The front door was for guests, the back door was for family, he said. He said he would pick up the girls on the way home. Does anyone else know? I wasn't ready for the whole world to know that I was cuckolded. Luckily, my sister shook her head. No, Duncan won't say anything until he clears it with you first. When I dropped off the twins, Tammy asked, but I brushed it off, saying it was a family emergency. I sat down at the table while she warmed the kettle. Given that it's just you and me on our side of the family now, it won't take her and James long to figure out who you were talking about. Do my brother-in-law and his wife even know about our extended clan? I doubt it. We haven't heard from Aunt Helen or Uncle Josh since Mom died. I think that broke them. What about our cousins? Sharon is somewhere up north doing some volunteer work, Joshua Jr. is in Pennsylvania doing something with a clock, and who knows where Doreen is now. However, while James and Tammy will probably figure out that it has something to do with you, they are both careful enough not to get involved unless invited. They already have a lot to worry about with their children. Their youngest just went into the terrible category of 3-year-olds. Wasn't he a terrible 2-year-old before? My sister snorted. Believe me, my youngest nephew is just terrible. She brought 2 cups of hot tea and placed one in front of me before sitting down at the opposite end of the table. I was pleased to be here, talking with her, talking about family. These were all everyday things. I could handle it. The two of us talked for a good 2 hours. It was a nice distraction that calmed my mind and allowed me to take some time away from the immediate trauma. In the end, we had to accept the inevitable. The gorilla in the room can't be ignored for that long. My sister reached across the table and took one of mine. So, what happened? Taking a deep breath, I felt another shiver run through my body. I told her everything that happened, including the fact that I lost my temper. Annabelle raised her eyebrows at this. I started with my plans for Gwen's birthday and ended up being found by a truck driver. I had to tell more than I thought I would. Like to say that it was a feeling of catharsis, that it felt good to get everything off my chest. The truth was that it was more like picking at an open wound, which made it even bigger. Maybe it wouldn't have been so bad if the wound wasn't right in front of where my heart should have been. My sister, God bless her, listened to me. She knew how to listen. "No signs at all, huh?" she asked with sympathy. Both our cups of tea were cold, half drunk at best. No, I didn't know anything was wrong. I can't remember anything that would indicate that something was wrong, and I still can't wrap my head around it, you know? I said. I mean, yes, Joe was often around, but so were many of our friends. She was friends with him first, but that doesn't mean I came home and found him lying on the couch. Gwen didn't talk about him any more than anyone else we knew. She may have spent more time dancing with him when we went out, but I was always there. Nothing ever happened before my eyes. Annabelle blushed. I hate to ask my own brother this, but what about Night? Here I could only shrug my shoulders. Everything was wonderful, I thought. She never complained and always looked satisfied, more than satisfied. Between you and me, she introduced me to a lot of things that I never would have. Embarrassment made me stop there. There were some things I didn't want to explain to my little sister. Annabelle just grinned slightly in response, coughing delicately. I continued. For the first year or so after we got married, we made love like rabbits. But then things slowed down. Once every 2 days, maybe once a week. Was this really a sign? But I've read that this is what happens in long-term relationships. Things slow down a bit. She didn't say anything. And once a week is still pretty, I don't know, still pretty good, right? Annabelle chuckled sarcastically. I have 2 one-year-old children. Ask me how often, Duncan, and I can do this right now. I didn't want to go through with it, so I tried to divert the conversation to another topic. I don't remember what happened when I lost my temper. I know roughly what I said, but not exactly, and I don't remember leaving the house or driving along the highway, I said in shock. My sister told me she worked as a trauma nurse at a county hospital for a while until it became too difficult. Your mind couldn't fully process what was happening, so parts of it shut down to help you carry on with your life. I've seen this before. Accident victims came to us with barely a scratch but went into autopilot after seeing what was left of their loved one. The same if the failures continue. You should see a psychotherapist or something else, right now. I wouldn't worry too much about it. The main question, big brother, is what do you want to do about it? Annabelle raised one of her hands, taking it away from mine to forestall any response on my part. You don't have to answer this question right away. Take some time to think. Closing my mouth, I nodded in agreement. I should probably call work and see if I can get a few days off, and I need to resolve the issue of retrieving my car from the stop. Annabelle and I made plans as best we could. Taking a few days off from work turned out to be a little more difficult. I explained to the HR person as much as I could to the best of my ability, asked for family leave, was denied, but was allowed to use the 3 days of personal leave that I had left. It was Wednesday, and that combined with the weekend gave me 5 days off, so I had until Tuesday morning to try to figure out what the hell I was going to do. I was finishing writing a letter to my boss when Duncan came home with the twins. My brother-in-law was a strange character. Duncan and my sister looked like complete mismatches. She was almost the same height as me, plump, especially after having children, naturally blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and simply stunning. Her husband, on the other hand, was barely 6 feet tall, skinny, weather-beaten, and half the time he looked like a grinning monkey. In addition, the age difference had an effect. There was a 10-year difference between them. Wherein I have never seen a more loving couple. And I like Duncan. He is a hard worker, a good father and husband. But what if his laugh was harsh? Well, my sister liked that laugh. That was enough for me. When he came to talk to me, he did not smile. Still in his overalls and boots, he sat down on one of the kitchen chairs as Annabelle led the children into the living room. Dude, are you okay? I released the air from my cheeks in a dramatic sigh. Well, I'm alive. This is already something. Duncan nodded solemnly. Better than the alternative. He looked at me intently. Let's leave everything as it is, huh? There was nothing to say, so I nodded again. Duncan knew my past. I still had the scars on my wrist from school. The first great love in my life crushed me, cut out my heart, and almost destroyed me. My sister knew all about it too, but Annabelle believed that I wouldn't be so stupid again. Although I can't say that during all this, I didn't have thoughts of suicide. I was thrown into a deep well of depression without warning. I wanted the world to disappear. I just wanted not to feel what I felt. But going so far as to try to kill yourself? No, fortunately, I haven't gotten to that point yet. Bye. I excused myself and went upstairs to the guest bedroom. My old bedroom was now the girls' nursery. It didn't matter, I was glad to have a place to stay where I would feel safe. Closing the door behind me, I took off my shoes and lay down. The familiar smell of home filled my nostrils as I rested, and I closed my eyes again to just not be for a while. I woke up disoriented and out of breath. The room was unfamiliar, and my hands immediately reached out to touch Gwen's shoulder, finding the seat next to me empty. I panicked and sat up abruptly to look for her. Someone took her. She is not here, and this thought filled me with helpless horror. Is she alive? Is she in danger or lost somewhere? In the darkness of the bedroom, I could not rationalize her absence. It took a few more heartbeats before reality hit me. Someone took her from me. I remembered. I pulled my knees to my chest. I wanted to cry again, but there were no more tears. Having cried earlier, I was dehydrated and drained. It was night, and there was silence in the house. I couldn't hear my sister or her husband, and the twins didn't make any noise in their room down the hall. Checking my phone, I saw that it was already close to midnight. I also saw that there were no messages or unanswered calls. Gwen didn't try to reach me, which is fair, I suppose. I didn't call her either, but it still hurts. Still trying to fight off the sleep, I sent her a message. Are you awake? I sat with the phone in my hand for what seemed like an eternity, waiting for an answer. Only a minute or so passed, but it seemed like an eternity. Outside, the distant hooting of a barn owl could be heard, and it seemed as if she often visited the house. When she answered, there was only one word, no. I swallowed hard when I typed the answer. There was a lump in my throat. You are alone. Gwen's next reply took even longer to reach my phone, a full 5 minutes of pure hell for me. No, God, my heart broke again. It felt like a blow from the inside. The fact that my wife was being honest now was not as reassuring as I had hoped. It was tempting to ask who she was with, but my depression whispered that it was Joe. Why ask? Taking a few deep breaths, I carefully considered my words before typing them. Can we talk? I really need to talk to you. Several minutes passed, but there was no answer. Please. Finally, she sent me a curt reply, tomorrow. Bile rose to the back of my throat. Damn, she's going to keep me waiting. Perhaps this is fair, since I was the one who ran away from home, but it made me feel like I was losing even more ground with her, which in turn made me wonder if I had anything at all with my wife. How many lies were there in our marriage? Did the woman I love have any respect for me? If she couldn't give him up, then why did she marry me and not him? The grim answer was simple. Joe was less than stable in his life. He bounces from job to job, has no car, shares an apartment with 3 others, and has no prospects for the future. I, on the other hand, work, have some money in the bank, and in general, am considered a reliable guy. The thought that she only married me out of a sense of security loomed uncomfortably close. Maybe I was never her husband, maybe I was her free lunch ticket, and I was too dumb to realize it. The only way to know for sure is to talk to her in the morning. About 10, I'll take the bagels, as you say. Gwen knows me too well, she knows how to hurt me. My nose started running, I wiped it off with my shirt sleeve and moved on. Fine, at 10 with bagels. I love you, Gwen. There was no answer. I waited for an hour, huddled on the bed and staring at the phone, hoping for an answer, but there was nothing. Realizing that she was not going to answer, I allowed myself to collapse on the bed in anguish. I've already lost her, I said to myself. Despair told me that I never had her and that my life was a lie. Old doubts and fears seeped through the floorboards of my brain to obscure any light of reason. I remained in bed, paralyzed by a terrible anxiety that I thought I had long ago conquered, and began to wonder if wanting to end it all was not such a bad idea after all. I hadn't had such thoughts for a long time. Depression is a monster. but I thought I had beaten it for good. Duncan's clear words rang in my ears. I promised I wouldn't do anything stupid. But now I'm wondering, is it really that stupid to avoid pain, to escape from lies, run away from myself, and let life go on without me? Who in this world needs me? Really needs me? Close to dawn, one of the twins woke up and began to cry. All the household began to stir. I heard my sister's husband, losing his step, enter the nursery and talk casually with one of the daughters who had disturbed him. Annabelle's sleepy voice echoed down the hallway. Her family was waking up around her, and it didn't take long before the smell of coffee filled the room. Life went on. It didn't matter whether I was there or not. I forced myself out of bed, with a heaviness weighing down my every movement. I had no sleep. I was emotionally wrecked. I still wore my work clothes from last night, and I was terrified of what new revelations the day would bring. I wanted to die, but a promise was made about the bagels. Maybe the bakery will have some of my favorite French toast. Maybe they have poppy seed bagels that will give me a narcotic high. Isn't it common for people to test positive for pills from poppy seeds? In any case, they will give me bagels, and sometimes it is the smallest things that help us move forward. As I left the room, I almost bumped into my sister. "Hey, dumbass, I was just about to wake up your sorry fifth place." Taking a step back, she looked me up and down. "Jesus, Jack, you look even worse now than when I picked you up." Not trusting my voice, I gave her a sick grin. "Take a shower," she demanded firmly, placing her hands on my shoulders. She turned me around and pushed me in the direction of the bathroom. "You know where everything is. Get yourself in order. The robe hangs on the back of the door. Throw your clothes in the hallway, and I will wash them." I obediently obeyed. It was nice to have someone give me some guidance. Warm water cascaded down my body as I sat in the bathtub under the jets, the spray drumming on my head, driving away all thoughts. This is meditation. It didn't do anything to ease the pain in my heart. The emptiness remained, but the constant sound of the water rushing over me helped me not to think about it. I stayed in the shower for a good half hour before I reluctantly accepted that I had to move. There is another full bathroom in the house, but I didn't want to use all the hot water. I came out dressed in a white terry robe that I was sure my sister had stolen from some hotel. In the kitchen, Annabelle sat both of my nieces in their high chairs and tried her best to get them to eat. Duncan stood nearby, a cup of coffee in one hand and a mop in the other. "You see," he said to my grimy nieces, "if you don't eat, you'll become like Uncle Jack." You don't want to become like Uncle Jack, do you? I grinned mischievously as I left the bathroom. I looked in the mirror. The shower only slightly improved my condition. My sister gestured to the refrigerator. "Yesterday you slept through dinner. There is a plate for you in the refrigerator, chicken with rice and beans. Sit down and eat." "Thank you, Scarecrow." The food was placed in the microwave, freed from the foil. The clock said it was already 7:20. "We can't pick up my car this morning. I have something I need to take care of." "It's already done, Jack," Duncan reassured me. He took a sip of his coffee. "We did this last night while you were sleeping," one of the twins hissed, splattering some baby food all over the tray and the floor. The other giggled and did the same. Both parents took it calmly. "Are you going to go talk to?" It looks like my sister's new nickname for Gwen is. Annabelle has never forgiven or forgotten easily, so that nickname will likely stick with Gwen for quite some time regardless of the outcome. "Yes, I'll be back around 10. I thought we could sit around and try to figure out where. I don't know, where it all went wrong, I guess. And is there a chance to fix everything? Do you want this to fix this?" My brother-in-law's question made me squirm in my seat. "Don't know," I shrugged helplessly. On the one hand, we've been married for 6 years. We've known each other for more than 8, almost 9. It's hard to give it all up, you know? And you still love her. My sister wasn't stupid. Yes, I still love her." The microwave beeped, and I carefully took out a plate to sit at the table with them. Later, it smelled wonderful. My stomach groaned a little at the thought of food, but the fact that it was one of Duncan's dishes, and not my sister's, since Annabelle couldn't cook water, made the idea of eating appealing. "It tasted as good as it smelled," I said after the first bite. The weight of the statement I was about to make made me hesitate. It was hard to say it out loud. On the other hand, judging by what she said, she slept with him longer than just now, probably about 10 years, I think, which means she's been lying to me this whole time. Annabelle's eyes widened in surprise and rage. 10 years, Jack? She's been having an intim behind your back for 10 years, and you didn't notice anything? The words were like a wrong chord in a symphony. My appetite disappeared, and I carefully put my fork on the plate. To be fair, her husband reproached her gently. We didn't notice either, Annabelle. And this is a long time to keep such a secret. And no one found out about it besides. If she slept with this guy before meeting your brother, then Jack wouldn't notice any changes in her habits. My sister gave up. Sorry, Jack. I can't believe this little got away with it for so long. If I find out that anyone has known about the two of them all this time, I will kill them, I swear. Because of all this commotion, the twins became worried and began making take-me-in-your-arms movements towards their mother. Continuing to speak, she began to wipe the faces and fingers of the little ones. Grinning like a shark, she rubbed the tip of her nose across the face of one of her daughters, and then the other. Would you like to help Mommy cut the hair? Yes, you do. I know what you want. Parents cleaned up after their children, and I sat and picked at the food. I ate some more, but only because my sister was staring at me. I have to go to work, Jack, Duncan told me. If you need to spend the night here again, go ahead. But remember, this is your home too. Don't let her drive you out of it. Annabelle nodded. It's time for us to go too. The twins have a date at 8:30 today, and we need to hurry. Do you want me to help prepare them? I sincerely suggested. She shook her head. No, I can handle it myself. Although you should get some fresh air before going to her, I nodded. My breakfast was half finished. I wrapped the leftovers back in foil and put it away. Duncan tossed me the car keys. Hugging my sister where she sat, I kissed both nieces on the top of their heads. Jack, my sister called quietly when I went to get dressed. Yes? Annabelle hesitated for a moment. Don't do anything stupid, okay? I gave her a lopsided grin. I promise. Joe, Duncan, and now Annabelle all three warned me against doing things that I might regret. The only problem was that there was a huge amount of stuff that could be considered stupid. It would have been considered stupid to leave Gwen alone and crying the day before. Was I going to commit suicide? This thought lurked in the depths of my brain. Depression whispered sweet, seductive thoughts into my ear about how this world was not worth living if a person could be deceived by a loved one for so long. She claimed that no one would miss me in the long run. Nobody needs me. Gwen clearly has Joe. Annabelle has her own family to take care of. My friends, well, the D&D campaign can go on without me as if I were gone. As for my friends on social media, was I really more than a blip on their phone screen? These were familiar refrains that I thought I had outlived a few years ago. I haven't felt the need to see a therapist since my senior year of college. Nevertheless, she was there. Would it be stupid to beat the crap out of Joe? It might make me feel better, or at least make me feel less helpless. On the other hand, he can win. What will it look like? I know losing will make me feel even more miserable. And what if he puts me under arrest for assault? What if I kill him? Will I be able to kill him then? Gwen, what's more stupid, giving her a chance or divorcing her? The card the trucker gave me is still in my wallet. Is it stupid to call him right away, or is it better to wait? I sat sullenly in the local parking lot for about an hour before finally getting ready to go. At least meeting Gwen wasn't stupid. This had to be done first of all, no matter how afraid I was to get answers to the questions that tormented me. Luckily, the morning line at the local coffee shop was quite short. If I had to wait any longer, I'd get worried. But with tea for me, coffee for her, and a bag of bagels for everyone, I drove back home to my unfaithful wife. It was just after 10 when I pulled up to our driveway and entered through the attached garage. Gwen sat at the kitchen table with a thoughtful look, her long black hair tucked behind her ears, and her arms crossed protectively over her chest. This time she wasn't wearing a robe, she was wearing an old t-shirt and sweatpants, which was a far cry from her usual outfit. Nothing was said as I placed the coffee in front of her, sitting on the other side of the table. I opened the bag of bagels and lightly pushed it towards her. We need to talk, I began quietly. Gwen snorted. Yesterday, you didn't want to talk. Fair point. She's angry. The devil knows why she's the one who's angry, after all. It was me who was betrayed in all this. But I decided to remain calm. No, I didn't want to yesterday. I needed to leave. I needed to think. You left me. You got upset, angry, and then you got up and left me here to cry. Gwen seemed determined not to give either of us any relief. I took a sip of tea, wishing I had put more honey in it. Can you blame me? My question was direct but not cruel. I walked into the house and found the woman I was married to having on intim with one of our friends. And then she told me she slept with him the entire time we were married. How the hell was I supposed to react, Gwen? What did you want me to do? What do you think would happen if you two got caught? I'm sorry I left you when you needed me, but I was hurt. You hurt me. I still suffer from this. I looked at her closely. What would you do? She sank irritably into her chair, looking at the table. I don't think it matters now. Gwen looked at me from under her dark eyelashes. So what should we do now? It all depends on the circumstances, I suppose. Pushing the tea aside, I leaned forward and placed my hands on the table. You said you still loved me. Is this true, Gwen? The smile on her face was heavy with sadness as she replied, I never stopped loving you, Jack. Okay, it's already a start. It's like a spear pierced right into my chest, but this is the beginning. Next came a difficult question. True, it was not so much a question as a clarifying statement, but it will do. But you also love Joe? My wife couldn't see my gaze. It took her several attempts to give me any kind of answer, and her voice was quiet. I love him, it's just not the same as before. It's hard to explain, Jack. And what isn't it, mate? Better? Better? No, not better, I pressed. He's different, that's all. Is it a matter of size? Gwen rolled her eyes, still not quite looking at me. Damn it, Jack. It's not about the size. Guys care about this much more than women. I didn't give up. So it's bigger? Finally, she looked into my eyes, and even looked full of irritation. Yes, she confirmed with sarcasm. Is this what you want to hear, Jack? Will this make you happy? Gwen, just tell me the truth. I was losing patience. Why have you been dating him all this time? What didn't I give you? Not enough intim? Is an intim not good enough? Didn't I spend enough time with you? Did I take you for granted? Am I not desirable enough for you? To every question, she shook her head, causing her long hair to flutter. No, no, no. Do you think marriage is just a license to decide who will have me, Jack? No, this may be an expectation, Gwen, but I thought marriage was a relationship built on trust. And now I find out that the whole foundation I thought we had is a stinking lie. So before we continue, I want to know why. My voice grew louder, but I controlled myself and pulled myself back into place. Am I asking that much, Gwen? Gwen was silent longer than I would have liked, but I didn't continue. I gave her time to think about how to frame whatever answer she was going to give. He's no bigger than you, she admitted. You are about the same size. Maybe you're even a little fatter. My wife took a deep breath, forcing herself to continue. And we never laughed at you, Jack. Joe and I never laughed at you or belittled you, we just never talked about it. They didn't talk about you. None of us thought you'd ever find out. We didn't want to think about you finding out. You were happy, you didn't need to know. We were happy, you and me. Joe and I were happy, you and Joe got along well, so we left everything as is. She never answered why. I wondered if she actually knew. Now that I know, what do you want to do now, Gwen? With our marriage, what? What I want, I don't think it's possible, Jack. You will never do this, of all these. Is she joking like that? I knew it wasn't, but the idea was so outrageous that I couldn't gather my thoughts. You want everything to remain as it is. You want to stay married to me and continue to have a night with Joe on the side? Well, maybe not so much on the side, to be honest. No, no way, Gwen. I don't know what internet nonsense you've read, but it won't happen. We'll still have intim, Jack, she insisted. You are my husband. I want you to be happy, but you're better off with Joe. All I'll get for the rest of my life is a lot of pity night. Desperate, my wife moved her chair closer to mine. No, Jack, I won't make love to you out of pity or anything like that. It will be because I love you. I still find you attractive. I still enjoy an intimate with you. It's just Joe. He fulfills a need in me that you don't have. I need variety, and he gives it to me, just like you give me what he cannot give. The whole thing gave me a headache, and that last comment was something I definitely didn't want to hear. What if I decide to find someone else, Gwen? If I find someone who will do the same for me, what is Joe doing for you? Someone who will give me variety. I saw a spark of jealousy was already arising inside her, and gritting my teeth, I laid out my arguments. Out of curiosity, would that suit you, so that I can have another woman? No, her expression showed open disgust at the idea, and it was clear that her position was resolute. Why not? I objected. If you can be with Joe, then why can't I have whoever I want? Why should I give you so much leeway in our marriage if you don't want to do the same for me? Because it won't be the same, Jack. Joe and I have known each other for years. You know him too, you are friends. Hell, no, Gwen ignored this and continued, if you find someone on the street or in some sleazy bar, it can't be compared. You won't have the same history with her that I have with Joe. I won't know her. Is she really so delusional that she can't see the selfishness? In any case, you will never do this. I know you, Jack, you are a one-woman man, and always have been. The same heavy silence filled the room, a tension that none of us dared to break. My heart was beating harder than I could have imagined because she's right. Even if Gwen had agreed to my open relationship, I would never have slept with anyone else. But it also confirmed something else for me. You're right, I finally admitted, breaking the silence. I would not. And the one I thought I married wouldn't either. But I think that one doesn't exist. I stood up and carefully pushed my chair under the table. All this time, I felt her gaze on me. I'll sleep in the guest bedroom until we decide what to do with the house. Confusion appeared on her face. What do you mean, what to do with the house? And you can't seriously talk about sleeping in the guest room, Jack. We're husband and wife. We are not husband and wife, I simply told her. Maybe we have a piece of paper that says that we are husband and wife, but in reality. I shrugged helplessly, allowing despair to consume my soul again. You may know me, but I don't know you, Gwen. And we can always get another piece of paper where it will be written that we are not married. Her face turned deathly pale, and she staggered to her feet. She grabbed the edge of the table, trying to go around it and come to me. It was clear that she didn't expect me to go this way. Divorce? No, Jack, what? I already have a lawyer. This statement was slightly misleading, considering I hadn't even called the man yet, but I knew full well that his business card was in my wallet. I'll call him and get everything ready, and you should probably find one for yourself too. Maybe we can try counseling first, or maybe the two of us will go on a long vacation. How about that? Only the two of us can work things out. How the hell are we going to work this out, Gwen? I lashed out at her, my jaw clenching as the self-hatred boiled inside me again. The whole time we were together, you lied to me. How can I trust what you say or do now? Even if you were ready to give up on Joe, and from the way you talk, I can see that you are not. How can I believe that you actually did it without looking over your shoulder every minute to see, isn't he there? Damn, I don't know if I believe you. Is he the only one? This blow took me by surprise. Gwen went from panic to rage in an instant, and despite her small stature, the slap turned my cheek red. I'm not some woman of easy virtue, she screamed, and tears flowed down her cheeks. There was no one else, you and Joe, that's it. You can be angry, Jack. You can hate me for hurting you if you want, I won't blame you. A sharp finger buried itself in me, but don't you dare call me that. She hit me. She actually hit me. She came from an abusive family and swore many times that she would never be like the man who abused her the most. I looked at her in amazement until my lips began to curl. The gloves were now removed. You cheat on your spouse and then beat him. Looks like you still have some of your father in you, Gwen, my wife suppressed a heavy sob and shuddered doubly as if I had hit her in the stomach. I admit it was a cheap shot. Her father was a cruel adulterer. She told me about it. The expression of horror that flashed across her face showed that I had hit the target, although I was not very pleased. A low piercing scream escaped her lips. At that moment, I heard a quiet cough from the living room. This made me close my eyes and take a deep breath. Gwen wrote that she wasn't alone last night. He's still here, isn't he? Gwen didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around herself again. Her response, spoken in a whisper, was, "R.A.R. sharp, yes. Joe is still here. Last night he came back to me, unlike my husband." The devil appeared in the doorway dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. He still looked scared, but he spoke surprisingly calmly. "Gwen, honey, things aren't going well. I think you'd better let me talk to Jack for a while." I stared at him in disbelief. "What the hell makes you think that I want to hear what you have to say? Do you still love Gwen, Jack?" It was a question that left me furious. "Yes," I admitted. "I love her, at least I love the Gwen I thought I married. She's still the same, Jack. She is still your wife, still the woman who loves you." He spread his arms wide in some great philosophical gesture. "You just learn more about her, and she will learn more about you. It's not pretty for either of you, but you still love each other, and that's why you'll want to hear what I have to say, Jack." Maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised that Gwen dated Joe for so long. True, neither of us could be considered much better than average in appearance, but he was always a clever conversationalist. He managed to sound so sincere, so genuine in everything he said. I checked myself again. I looked at Gwen, who was standing to my left, then to Joe, who was standing on my right. My instincts were screaming at me to immediately run away from this room, that nothing good would come of this discussion, and that it would make me even worse. But another part of me wasn't ready to give up yet. Gwen was in my life for 8 years, 8 good years. How could I throw this away? I stepped back and leaned against the kitchen counter. "Okay, Joe," I waved my hand at him, "the floor is yours. Convince me not to go for a divorce." Gwen sat back down, crossing one leg over the other and folding her arms defensively over her chest. Joe nodded and cleared his throat. Instead of sitting down, he leaned against the frame of the door leading into the living room. "You say you love Gwen, Jack," he began, "but what exactly do you like about her?" "A million different things." The question was not so difficult. I asked myself this often, a kind of self-check to make sure I wasn't taking her for granted. Where to begin? The way she laughs from her eyes, that was the first thing that attracted me to her. The way she looks when she lies next to me is like she finally feels safe. Her taste in music, how she deliberately sings out of tune in the shower. We watch the same films. I take her to clubs although I don't like to dance, but I like to watch her dance. How she gets involved with her whole body as if the music takes over her. She is not jealous of my colleagues or friends, unlike the 2 friends I had before her. I wasn't going to mention the first girl, that was a separate pain. What else? She quietly lets me play D&D every Saturday, and the thought stopped. I closed my eyes and pinched the bridge of my nose. What an idiot I am. That's why you didn't want to join the playgroup, isn't it, Joe? Not because you preferred Pathfinder, but because that's when you and Gwen were dating, wasn't it? Without any apology on his part, he nodded. 4 or 5 hours alone almost every Saturday. It wasn't just a night, Jack. While you were away, we went on dates. But we're getting off topic, Jack. We're talking about what it is about Gwen that you like. I had a hard time digesting this latest revelation. Did anyone in the playgroup know what was going on? The band I played with was one of those rare ones that maintained a constant cohesion over the years despite people coming and going. Any of the 20 or so people who were or still are in it could have known about Joe and Gwen and simply said nothing. I also had a hard time answering Joe's question. What else did I love about Gwen? My answer was spoken quietly, and I could not look at either of them as I spoke. I liked that she was always there for me. Gwen made a quiet sound as if someone had stepped on her foot. I like that I can be close to her. I like that she trusted me and I trusted her. We could tell each other everything, anything. We never quarreled. Of course, sometimes we were angry with each other, and I know that we tested each other's patience. But we never really actually quarreled. We could talk. We could be honest with each other. I took a deep breath. For a long time until I met Gwen, I had trust issues, and with her, they all seemed to have disappeared. I trusted her. God, how dejected I must have looked. I trusted you, Gwen, my wife. Gwen entered the conversation again. All her anger seemed to have passed, and like me, there was a feeling of defeat in her shoulders. We wanted to tell you, Jack, she admitted meekly. We didn't talk about you, but we talked about, well, telling you. We didn't know how to do this without hurting you. We were afraid that this would humiliate you and you would become, well, like you are now. And after all this time, we stopped worrying about it, and well, we hoped for the best. There have been several close cases over the years. Joe had the courage to grin at me a couple of times. You stayed home sick, or the game was unexpectedly canceled. One time I got stuck in your closet for a couple of hours while you two were having an intim. To be honest, I didn't need to know that much. My mind flashed countless times that Gwen and I must have had intimate just hours after Joe had already done so. He must have realized it by the way I stared at him, causing him to wipe away his smirk and look down. You know what's sad, Gwen? I asked, turning to face her and looking into her eyes. If you and Joe had told me about this earlier, if you had come to me when we first got together and told me honestly about all this. Surprisingly, at that moment, I laughed, not from pleasure, but it seemed to burst out. I might actually go for it. No, seriously. I've always considered myself pretty open-minded. You've been talking me into some things for years, and you probably could have easily talked me into joining what you had. Damn, the three of us, you and us together. Why the hell not? But you lied to me. As if he had pulled an arrow out of his chest, the pain became stronger than with the first blow. You lied to me for 8 years. And here's the thing, Gwen. If you had admitted to cheating on me last week, I would have considered counseling. If you had confessed to me and not I accidentally found out, I'd try it. There would be a lot of talking, mind you, and it would be necessary to decide how Joe fits into this picture. But no, the only reason I found out was by accident. If it weren't for that, you'd still be lying to me, Gwen. And I can't continue our marriage knowing this. Joe straightened up, his face becoming serious. But don't you want to know why, Jack? It does not matter. I shouted back. For me, it does, Gwen interjected. For Gwen, it does. Why else do you think I'm fighting for you to stay married? I love her enough to share because she loves us both. Her happiness depends not only on me but on both of us. If you leave her, you will hurt her more than she ever hurt you. I really doubted it, but my emotions were like a roller coaster. With every word, I jumped back and forth between anger and depression. And I felt bad again. It meant so much to them. And what about me? Okay, then, do you want me to ask why, Joe, again? At some point, I stopped leaning my back against the counter and crossed the floor a couple of meters. Joe was within arm's reach. I was even closer to Gwen, so I directed my angry question towards her. If you love Joe so much and have known him so much longer, why did you marry me and not him? Neither of them had expected such a question, and it was clear from the way they nervously glanced at each other. However, Gwen accepted the challenge. Because you give me something he can't give, Jack. I need stability. I need security. I need to be able to come home to someone who I know will be there for me, who cares about me and who I care about. I need someone with whom I can have children. And it's you, Jack. It was always you. What does Joe give you, Gwen? Did the words sound as harsh as I thought? What does he give you that I can't give you? Joe makes me feel wild and free. It's as if there is no one in the world except me and him. She raised her chin defiantly. But as much as I love him, Jack, he would be a terrible father. And I want children. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday when we're ready. She might as well have given me another slap. Cudgel, because when she said, "We will be ready," I realized that she was not talking about her and me. For several seconds, I honestly couldn't form a coherent thought. I knew what stun meant, but this was my first time experiencing it. You were going to give me. You were going to give birth to Joe's children and pass them off as mine? She curled up into a ball, suddenly unsure of herself. They could have been his, but they could also be yours. I wouldn't care which one of you was really the father, Jack. I'd love them either way. But you would be a better father to them than him. This is where Joe came in, and it would be you. I mean, look at me. I am a freelance writer. My job sometimes takes me everywhere. I can't afford my own place. I live paycheck to paycheck. My car is always on its last legs, and I like it. But I want children. I've always wanted to have children, but I know I'll be a bad father. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for me, Jack? Stand here and admit that you are the better man. We will never know for sure whether these are my children or yours, Jack. Maybe some would be yours and some would be mine. It doesn't matter. I would take them for mine. You would think that they are yours, and no one would be the wiser for it. I would know that they are being cared for by a great guy who can be a real father to them. Too much is too much. I can't believe you both. I really can't. This is madness. First, you two are having an affair behind my back, then you try to accuse me of being a bad guy when you find out about it. Then you told me I was boring. I didn't say that, my wife protested, but her words fell on deaf ears. And now you're saying that you were going to trick me into raising another man's children because he's too damn lazy to do it himself? Were you going to leave and enjoy yourself, live your carefree life, leaving me to rock the damned cradle? This can't be happening. Their protests were so violent that they almost drowned each other out. Jack, dude, no, Gwen and I didn't think about it. You don't understand anything, Joe pleaded. Oh God, Jack, this is not what we want. Please try to understand, Gwen implored. I took another deep breath to calm myself. It had reached the point where I could no longer define my emotional state. Shock set in again. I was expecting to hear something I didn't want to hear, but that last part just broke me. Okay, I stopped feverishly, wondering what was going on in my brain. I wasn't okay. My head was spinning, and I had to drag myself to the counter to support myself. A headache pierced my brain, making it even more difficult to think. I looked out the window above the sink and thought about what a beautiful day it was outside. Okay, I repeated after swallowing bile. I managed to turn and look at Gwen. She sat back down, her knees pressed to her chest, and her arms wrapped around them. Her narrow chin rested on her knees, and she looked at me. God, she was beautiful. Looking at her, I remembered all the good times we had together. We drank in bars, went shopping together, spent rainy Sundays at home reading and cuddling, talked about what movies we wanted to see. There were wild, passionate nights that left us breathless and sore in the morning, and tender touches, which, while not explicit intimate, were just as good. I remembered how I held her in my arms when she told me about her abusive father, how I let her cry all night long when the bad dreams came. I remembered my wife holding my hands as I told her about my attempt to commit suicide when I was a teenager, explaining how much my first girlfriend had broken my heart, and her vow that she would never do this to me. I remembered yesterday when she said she loved me, that she didn't mean to hurt me. 2 questions, I suggested. The words came out quickly. 2 things to ask before we continue. Hesitantly, I walked over to Gwen and gently took her hand. I felt her little fingers trembling. Her emotions were as mixed as mine, the two of us unstable as our lives fell apart. Gwen, you said you loved me, that you always loved me. This is true, yes? There was no hesitation in her answer. Yes, Jack. I love you, she said, the same way she said her wedding vows 6 years ago, with the same love and sincerity. Another deep breath on my part because this was the only question that could solve everything. If I ask you, Gwen, will you stop dating Joe altogether? Are you ready to move out of state with me and never see or contact him again? Can you? Do you love me enough for this? Tears returned to her eyes, filled with horror as she realized what I was asking. Please don't ask me that, Jack, she whispered. Please don't make me choose between you. I swear I don't love Joe more than I love you. I love both of you. I need both. Her pale face became covered in red spots as she cried openly. Her fingers clung to mine, and I remembered again how many times we held each other when it seemed that the worst world had collapsed on us. SHH, I stroked the black silk of her hair with my other hand to calm her down. It's okay, Gwen. I won't ask you to make that choice. Hope flashed across her face amidst the tears. However, this hope faded when I carefully removed my hand from hers and walked away. I will make the choice that you could not make. No, she made a sound, shaking her head. No, Jack, please don't do this. You don't have to do this. We can figure something out. I can't live like this, Gwen. I can't accept this. You've lied to me twice already. No, Jack, twice? What do you mean? I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Joe. I'm sorry you found out the way you did, but please don't do this to me. Yes, twice, Gwen, I stuck out my thumb. First of all, you had an affair with him behind my back, and secondly, I unfolded my index finger. Secondly, you said you didn't love him more than me. My ex-wife was choking on sobs. That's right, Jack. I don't love him more than you. You love me, Gwen. I destroyed her, and it killed me. She's the one who's wrong, her and Joe. Yet, I felt like crap as I dealt the final blow. I know that you love Joe more than me for one simple reason. Your relationship with him was a secret that you kept from me. I didn't know anything, and I doubt I would have known if I hadn't come home early yesterday and ruined your fun. If it weren't for that, you two would still be talking right behind my back. But he knew about me all this time, called himself my friend, and you didn't hide anything from him. You were truthful with Joe, Gwen, all along. But you didn't love or respect me enough to give me that same honesty. It was a fact that she could not refute. All this time, Joe knew about me. He knew that Gwen fell in love with me, that she married me, that we had a night. I knew that I was there for her in the weakest moments of her life, and that it was with me that she went to bed every night. Am I? I didn't know a damn thing. Joe was not happy with this. He lost his temper and attacked me when I was about to leave the kitchen. Are you going to leave her crying like this again? Are you about to walk away from the best thing that ever happened to you? He hit himself in the chest with his fist. I love her so much that I'm ready to share her. Are you really so selfish that you can't do the same? I was almost on edge. There was no warmth in my response, only resignation. Do you love her enough that you would stay with her after she lied to you the entire time you knew her, Joe? If we switched places, would you be able to forgive her? Yes, his answer was quick and confident, and oddly enough, it brought a small smile to my lips. Then congratulations, Joe. Now you are a better man. I hope this helps you deal with the humiliation you were talking about. There were also screams, requests, please, more tears. I ignored all this. I didn't say anything more. For my part, everything that needed to be said or asked was said. So I said nothing. Gwen was openly sobbing, and Joe was still shouting arguments, trying to reason with me. As much as it pained me to hear that the woman I loved was overcome by such grief, I knew I could not continue our marriage. Finally, I managed to slip past Joe and into the living room. He tried to follow me, still angrily yelling at me about how unfair I was treating Gwen, and if I loved her at all, I would have seen it. Then I grabbed the table lamp and threw it at him. It didn't hit him, although I would have liked it to. The lamp hit the door frame behind him and broke. A terrified Gwen appeared at the kitchen door. I didn't look at her. I looked at Joe until he nervously raised his hands in a placating gesture and stepped back. In the bedroom, I packed all my things into a couple of suitcases. My birth certificate and social security card were in our shared safety deposit box to be retrieved later. All the rest, all sorts of trinkets, souvenirs, etc., I didn't need. Everything would remind me of Gwen. Duncan urged me not to let her kick me out of the house, and I said I'd take the guest bedroom. This shouldn't have happened. I knew that eventually she and Joe would have an intimate with each other again, and I'd be damned if I stayed there for it. When I left the bedroom, they had already left. Her car was gone too. I wondered where the hell Joe parked his skimpy sedan when he arrived, but then I realized he probably parked on the next street so as not to attract attention. But that didn't matter anymore. Where did they go? Who knows? Who cares? I don't care. I felt an overwhelming need to be away from them. Again, and then I noticed that they had taken a bag of bagels with them. I felt slightly dissatisfied about this because of all the drama. I didn't get a chance to eat one. There was just one more thing to do before I left the house. Placing my suitcases on the floor, I pulled out my wallet and felt for my business card. I carefully dialed the number on my phone and waited for someone to answer. When they answered, I felt as if I was standing on the edge of a huge cliff, ready to fall down at any moment. Yes, I answered the polite greeting. My name is Jack Brandt. A certain Ted White gave me your number. He is a former client of your office. In any case, I would like to make an appointment with Mr. Lin. The secretary again politely and professionally inquired about the reason, and I sighed before answering. Yes, I'm divorcing my wife. Divorce, as it turns out, is not at all like what is shown in movies or magazines. It is long, cruel, and expensive. Okay, maybe it's not expensive for a successful guy with money in the bank and an understanding boss, but for the rest of us, there are court costs, legal fees, attorney fees, and consulting fees. It all adds up. Yes, I said about paying for consultations. My lawyer was good, but we ended up with a judge who believed in the sanctity of marriage, and Gwen and I were ordered to attend at least 10 marriage counseling sessions before the case would proceed further. We hadn't even made it through 4. There was no progress between my reluctance to forgive years of betrayal and Gwen's reluctance to give up on Joe forever. The therapist gave up when Joe showed up at the last session, and he and Gwen decided that he should participate in our counseling. At that moment, it was all over. A corresponding letter was written to the lawyers and the judge. The judge reluctantly granted the request but said that we still had to pay the therapist for all 10 sessions. I was too tired to argue. Gwen didn't even blink. Outside of consultations and hearings, I did not see or communicate with her. Phone calls and emails were ignored. A restraining order was issued to keep Gwen and her lover away from my sister's house. I understand it's cold, but I wanted to move on with my life. In the end, an agency was brought in to sell everything that we did not want to share among ourselves. The house was to be sold, the proceeds going to pay off the debt to the mortgage company. The rest went to legal fees. There was nothing left for any of us. What about the rest of our finances? I'm lucky the judge wanted to award me alimony because I initiated the divorce. But Gwen made a lot more than me at her internet company, and since she earned more, she would have to pay child support. At least, that's what I understood from my lawyer. I didn't try to achieve this. What do you think of our first part of the story today? I feel like building an affair with a mutual close family friend is the last thing I would do in my wife's shoes, but the husband still did better in this part, waiting for part 2. What's your opinion? Write in the comments. See you in the comments.